The night Emeka won $100 million, the ancestors gave him only one warning, a single dream, a voice older than memory itself, whispering through the shadows of his sleep. Do not return to the tree where you begged for fortune. But greed always tempts those who rise too fast. And on the night he broke that sacred rule, everything he had gained vanished like smoke in a storm. This is his story, a story of blessings, boundaries, and the terrible price of forgetting where you came from. Before we go any further, can I ask you for a small favor? My mom said I can't reach 1,000 subscribers. Kindly help me prove her wrong by subscribing. This story took me days to write, record, and edit. Every frame, every emotion, every sound. It cost you nothing to support me, but it truly means everything to me. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you have not, and comment your location below. I want to know where my amazing viewers are watching from. I read every comment, and I will be giving shout out in my next video. Emeka was 28 years old when his world was held together by threads so thin, a single breath could snap them all. He lived in a one-room apartment in the outskirts of Lagos, where the walls sweated rust and the ceiling leaked prayers. Every morning he woke up to the sound of his mother coughing in the corner they shared with his two younger siblings. Tuberculosis, the doctor said. Expensive treatment, the doctor added. Impossible, Emeka's bank account replied. He worked 3 jobs, a security guard at night, a laborer during the day, a delivery man on weekends. His hands were rough as tree bark. His back bent like a question mark that never found its answer. And still, it wasn't enough. The landlord came every week, his belly swollen with other people's rent, his eyes empty of mercy. 3 months, Emeka. 3 months, and I throw you all into the street. Emeka would nod, apologize, promise, repeat. His girlfriend, Kioma, would hold his hand in the dark and whisper, "It will get better." But even her voice had started to crack under the weight of hope deferred too long. And then came the night that changed everything. There was a tree on the edge of the village where Emeka's grandmother was buried. The Udala Tree. Ancient. Twisted. Its roots dug so deep into the earth, people said they touched the realm of the ancestors themselves. The elders spoke of it only in whispers. They said the tree was a doorway, a place where the living could speak to those who had gone before, where blessings could be asked for, if your heart was pure, if your need was real, if you approached with humility. But they also said this: the Udala tree gives only once, and it gives with conditions. Emeka had heard these stories his whole life, dismissed them as folklore, old people's tales. But when your mother is coughing blood and your siblings are eating once a day, you stop caring whether a story's true. You just care whether it offers hope. So one Friday night, under a moon that hung low and full like a watchful eye, Emeka walked barefoot through the forest path to the Udala tree. The air was different there, thick, heavy, with something older than oxygen. The tree stood in a clearing, massive and alone, its branches reaching toward the sky like fingers grasping for answers. Emeka knelt in the red dirt. He pressed his forehead to the ground, and he prayed. Not the kind of prayer you say in church, polished and proper. This was raw, desperate. The kind of prayer that comes from a soul stripped down to its last nerve. If there is any blessing left for me in this world, he whispered, his voice breaking, let it fall tonight. I am not asking for riches. I am not asking for fame. I am asking for a chance. One chance to save my mother, to feed my family, to breathe without drowning. The forest went silent, not peaceful, silent, as if every living thing had stopped to listen. And then the wind came, not a breeze, a wind, circular, deliberate. It moved around the tree in a spiral, rustling leaves that shouldn't have moved, carrying a temperature that had no place in the humid Nigerian night, cold, like the breath of something that had never been warm. Emeka's heart hammered against his ribs. He wanted to run, but his knees were locked to the earth. And then something fell. A calabash. small, carved with symbols he didn't recognize. It landed at his feet without a sound. His hands trembled as he picked it up. Inside was a single kola nut, its surface etched with a pattern, lines and dots that looked almost like numbers. And then he heard it. The voice, not loud, not harsh, just there, inside his head and all around him at once. Take, it said. Soft, ancient, neither male nor female. But do not return. Emeka's breath caught in his throat. What do you mean? The wind circled faster. The voice repeated, firmer this time. Do not return. And then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The wind died. The forest sounds returned. Crickets, distant frogs, the rustle of night creatures. The moon seemed brighter. Normal. Emeka stood, clutching the calabash, his legs shaking. He didn't understand, but he felt it. The weight of something sacred, something powerful, something that had just touched his life. He walked home in silence, the kola nut burning a hole in his pocket. If you believe blessings should be approached with respect, tap the like button, because what happened next would test everything Emeka thought he knew about fortune. The next morning, Emeka woke with the pattern from the kola nut still vivid in his mind. He couldn't explain it, but the numbers felt alive, pulsing, urgent. On his way to work, he passed a lottery vendor. He'd walked past that same vendor 1,000 times and never bought a ticket. Gambling was for people with money to waste. But today, his feet stopped. One ticket, he heard himself say. The vendor, an old woman with kind eyes and tired hands, smiled. Any numbers in mind? Emeka looked at the kola nut pattern he'd drawn on a scrap of paper. These. She entered them, handed him the ticket. May fortune find you, my son. He stuffed it in his pocket and forgot about it, until 3 days later, when his phone exploded with calls. The first was from a number he didn't recognize, and then another, then 10 more. His phone vibrated so hard it fell off the table. When he finally answered, the voice on the other end was screaming, Emeka! Emeka, you won! You won the national lottery! $100 million! The world tilted. He stood in the middle of his cramped room, his mother coughing in the corner, his siblings staring at him with wide eyes, and he felt nothing. Not joy, not relief. Just a strange, cold certainty that something had shifted in the fabric of his reality. The numbers, he whispered, pulling out the kola nut. The ancestors. Within hours, his house was surrounded. News cameras, reporters, neighbors he'd never spoken to suddenly calling him brother. The lottery officials came with security, verified his ticket, and told him the money would be in his account within 48 hours. The entire village erupted in celebration. But Emeka couldn't shake the feeling. The memory of that voice, cold and clear. Do not return. That night, lying awake while strangers partied in his yard, he felt the wind again, through the window, circling, whispering, do not return, do not return, do not return. Money changes people, not always in the ways you expect. For the first month, Emeka was humble. He paid for his mother's treatment, the best doctors, the best hospital, every medication she needed. He moved his family into a proper house with rooms and windows that closed, and a kitchen that didn't double as a bedroom. He bought clothes that didn't smell like someone else's sweat, shoes that fit, food that filled. Kioma cried when he paid off her mother's debt. She held him and whispered, You are still you, Emeka. Don't forget who you are. He promised he wouldn't. But promises are easy to make when the money is new and the memory of poverty is still fresh. By the second month, Emeka had bought a mansion in Lekki. 5 bedrooms, a swimming pool, gates that opened with a remote. He hired a chef, a driver, security guards who called him Sir and stood at attention when he passed. By the third month, he'd bought 3 luxury cars, a Range Rover, a Mercedes, and a Lamborghini. He didn't even know how to drive properly. The parties started. Every weekend, sometimes every night. Music so loud the neighbors 3 streets away complained. Champagne flowing like water. People, so many people. Filling his house, drinking his alcohol, eating his food. calling him boss and king and legend. And Emeka started to believe it. The man who used to kneel in the dirt and beg for one chance now walked like he owned the earth beneath his feet. Kioma noticed. "You're changing," she said quietly one night, after he'd dismissed her concerns about a friend who was clearly using him. "I'm not changing," Emeka snapped. "I'm finally living." "Living?" Her eyes were sad. Or forgetting? He didn't answer. He didn't want to. Because deep down, beneath the champagne and the laughter and the designer clothes, he could still feel it. That wind, that whisper. Do not return. But pride is a drug more potent than any substance. And Emeka was becoming addicted. Comment humility, if you believe pride comes before a fall. Because what happened next would shatter everything. It was during one of his parties, the biggest yet, with a live band and imported champagne and half the city's social elite, that the men arrived. 5 of them, older, dressed in traditional attire, their faces carved from stone and memory. They walked through the crowd like they owned it. Straight to Emeka, who was holding court on his terrace, surrounded by admirers. The leader, a man with tribal marks deep as scars, spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Emeka Okafor, we have come to collect what is owed." The music didn't stop, but the laughter did. Everyone turned. Emeka frowned, champagne glass still in hand. "I don't know you." "But we know you," the man replied. "We know where your fortune came from. The Udala tree, the tree that belongs to our lineage, the tree our ancestors planted, the tree that gave you everything." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Emeka laughed. Actually laughed. "Are you serious? You want money because I prayed under a tree?" "It is not just a tree," another elder said, his voice grave. "It is sacred ground, and when you took from it, you took from us. The blessing was ours to give, you owe us." Emeka's face hardened. The champagne suddenly tasted bitter. "I owe you nothing. I won that lottery with my own ticket, my own numbers. This is mine." The lead elder's eyes narrowed. "You were warned, Emeka. The ancestors give with conditions, and those who break sacred rules pay sacred prices." "Get out," Emeka said coldly. "All of you, get out of my house." Security moved in. The men were escorted out, but not before the leader turned back and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You will remember this night, Emeka, when everything you have turns to dust." The party resumed. People laughed it off. "Superstitious old men," someone said. "Jealous of your success," another added. But Emeka didn't sleep that night, because the wind was back, howling outside his window, and the voice was no longer a whisper, it was a warning. The spiritual woman came to him 2 weeks later. She showed up at his gate unannounced, wearing all white, her eyes seeing things most people couldn't. The guards tried to turn her away, but something in her presence made them hesitate. Emeka met her at the door, irritated. "What do you want?" She looked at him with the kind of pity reserved for the condemned. "I came to warn you, Emeka Okafor. Your blessing has a covenant. The Udala tree does not give twice. You must never return to that place." His blood went cold. "How do you know about the ancestors speak?" she said simply. "And they are waiting to see if you will listen." Emeka's pride flared. "I don't need warnings from trees or spirits or anyone. I made this money. It's mine." The woman shook her head slowly. "No, child, it was given. And what is given with conditions can be taken away the same way." "Then let them try," Emeka said, his voice hard. "I'm not afraid of superstition." She reached out as if to touch his arm, but stopped. "Fear is not the issue. Wisdom is, and you are running out of it." She turned to leave, then paused. "When you lose everything, Emeka, remember, you were warned." He slammed the door. That night, drunk on expensive whiskey and surrounded by enablers who fed his ego, Emeka made a decision that would cost him everything. "You know what?" he announced, standing on his table like a king addressing subjects. "I'm going back to that tree. I'm going to prove all these superstitious fools wrong. I'm going to show everyone that I make my own fortune, that I bow to no ancestors, no spirits, no ancient rules." His friend Chibuike, his closest friend, the one who'd been with him since childhood, raised his glass. "That's the spirit, brother. Show them who's boss." The crowd cheered. Chioma, standing in the corner, quietly walked out. She didn't say goodbye. If this moment made you uneasy, share this video, because some warnings are written in blood. The next morning, Emeka returned to the Udala Tree. He brought bodyguards, cameras, friends. He wanted witnesses, wanted proof, wanted to film the moment he proved that the supernatural was just superstition for the weak-minded. The forest felt different in daylight, less mysterious, just trees and dirt and sunlight filtering through leaves. "See?" Emeka laughed as they approached the clearing. "Nothing but a tree." But as they stepped into the clearing, everything changed. The cameras died. All of them. Batteries drained instantly. The bodyguards froze, their eyes suddenly wide with terror. One of them whispered, "Sir, we should leave." Emeka ignored him. He walked to the tree, his heart pounding but his pride louder. "I'm here," he shouted. "You gave me a blessing and I'm asking for more. Double it. I want 200 million. I deserve it." The wind came. Not gentle this time. Violent. Angry. It whipped around the tree so fast it created a vortex, pulling at their clothes, their hair, their breath. The bodyguards ran. Emeka stood alone, facing the tree, and he heard it again. The voice. But this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a roar. "You were warned!" The ground beneath him trembled. The tree's branches twisted, creaking like ancient bones. And Emeka, for the first time in months, felt true fear. He reached out and touched the bark, and everything went black. When Emeka woke up in his bed the next morning, he thought it had been a dream, a terrible, vivid nightmare, brought on by too much alcohol and too much pride. But then his phone rang. It was his bank. "Mr. Okafor, there's been an issue with your account. It's been frozen pending investigation." "Investigation? What investigation?" "We've received reports of fraudulent activity. You need to come in immediately." Before he could respond, another call, the Lottery Commission. "Mr. Okafor, we need to discuss your winning ticket. There's been a discrepancy." "What kind of discrepancy?" "The ticket number in our system doesn't match the one you claimed with. We're launching a full investigation." His hands went numb. And then the news alert. Lottery winner Emeka Okafor under investigation for fraud. Within 24 hours, his world collapsed. His bank accounts frozen. His investments mysteriously failing one after another. His properties seized for investigation. His cars repossessed under sudden loan default claims he never agreed to. Every business deal fell through. Every partnership dissolved. Every friend disappeared. The same people who'd called him king now called him criminal. And then the men from the village returned. This time with lawyers, with documents, with evidence, fabricated but convincing, that Emeka had stolen the winning ticket from them. The media devoured it. Overnight, Emeka went from lottery winner to national scandal. But the worst was yet to come. The supernatural signs started small. A crack in his mansion wall. Just one at first, then 10, then the entire structure groaning like it was being pulled apart from the inside. One night, the roof collapsed. No storm, no earthquake, just collapsed, as if the house itself had decided it no longer wanted to stand. His cars, all three of them, broke down simultaneously. Different locations, same moment. Mechanics couldn't explain it. It's like, one said, something drained all the life out of them. And the cola nut, the one from the Udala tree, the one Emeka had kept in a glass case like a trophy, turned black overnight. Not moldy. Black, as if burned from the inside. And then in front of his eyes, it melted into liquid that smelled like regret and ashes. Emeka stood in the ruins of his mansion, surrounded by possessions he could no longer claim, and finally understood. The ancestors had taken everything back, not because they were cruel, because he had broken the one rule they'd given him. If this shocked you, hit the subscribe button, because the truth gets even deeper. broken, penniless, alone. Emeka had lost everything except the clothes on his back and the crushing weight of his own foolishness. His mother, back in the small house they'd lived in before the money, wouldn't look at him. Not with anger, with sadness. The kind of sadness that cuts deeper than any curse. His siblings avoided him. Kioma had moved on. She'd tried to warn him. He hadn't listened. And Chibuik, his best friend, the one who'd encouraged him to go back to the tree, was nowhere to be found. Vanished. Phone disconnected. Address empty. One evening, as the sun set blood-red over Lagos, Emeka walked back to the Udala Tree. Not with pride this time, not with demands, with nothing but a broken heart and a desperate need to understand. He knelt in the same spot where he'd knelt months ago. And he wept. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I was warned. I was blessed. And I threw it all away because I thought I was bigger than the rules. I'm sorry." The wind came, gentle this time. And the voice returned, not angry, sad. "You asked for fortune. We gave it. You were told not to return. You returned." Emeka bowed his head, tears soaking the red earth. I know. I wanted more. I thought I deserved more. And now," the voice said, "your true fortune is the humility you once lost." The vision came then, not threatening, revealing. He saw the men from the village, saw them meeting with Chibuike in secret, saw money changing hands, saw a plan forming. Chibuike had betrayed him. His closest friend had worked with those men from the beginning, had encouraged him to go back to the tree, knowing what would happen, knowing the ancestors would revoke the blessing, knowing the wealth would be redistributed. And Chibuike had positioned himself to take it all. The lottery money hadn't vanished. It had been transferred through legal loopholes, false claims, and bureaucratic manipulation. Chibuike now lived in a mansion, drove luxury cars, threw parties, and Emeka had helped him do it by breaking the sacred rule. The vision faded. Emeka sat in the dirt, numb. Not all curses are supernatural. Some are made by humans wearing the mask of friendship. "What do I do now?" he whispered. The voice was quiet, final. Grow what lasts, not what fades. 6 months later, Emeka was working as a laborer again, building houses for other people, fixing roofs, carrying cement. His hands were rough again, his back bent again. But something was different. He smiled more, worried less, slept better. His mother's treatment continued, not through millions, but through a community fund Emeka had started, where people contributed what they could. She was healing, slowly, honestly. And one morning, Kioma appeared at his door. She didn't say anything at first, just looked at him, really looked at him. "You're different," she finally said. "I'm me again," he replied. She smiled. "I missed you." That weekend, Emeka walked to the Udala Tree one last time. Not to ask, not to demand, just to thank. And there, in the same spot where the first calabash had fallen, he found another one. His heart raced as he opened it. No money inside, no cola nut etched with lottery numbers, just seeds, simple, ordinary, seeds. And a note, written in a script he couldn't read but somehow understood. "Plant these, water them with humility, and they will grow into something money could never buy." Emeka planted those seeds in his mother's garden, and over time, they grew. Not into wealth, into wisdom, into community, into a life that didn't need millions to feel rich. Emeka learned that blessings come with boundaries. Some rules are made not to limit us, but to protect us from ourselves. Because the ancestors knew what Emeka had to learn the hard way. Fortune without wisdom is just a countdown to ruin. If you believe greed destroys more than it builds, hit that subscribe button. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done the moment you heard the warning, "Do not return"? Would you have listened? Or would you have tested fate like Emeka did? Your answer might reveal more about you than you think. This is a story about more than money. It's about respect, boundaries, and the thin line between blessing and curse. Thank you for watching. And remember, some rules exist because those who broke them before you can no longer warn you themselves.